What's going on, Valve community? It's your boy Ryan Webb back here with another video. Now, it's been a little bit since I've actually made a video and uploaded one because, I've been quite active this past summer with my videos, but I originally made, my print Sign of the Times review, and I posted that one, and then along with that, I made a few more reviews for some of my favorite albums of all time. But I decided I don't think I'm going to post those. I want to put a little bit more research into the videos, but like research is in behind the albums as well as what the songs mean lyrically. And to me, I guess I don't need to research what the songs mean to me, but I kind of do a little bit of research behind the songs and the lyrics. So even though I don't make scripts for these videos, I want them to feel like a conversation for those videos for review my favorite albums. I think I might just do scripts so I can make sure I get all the information that needs to be said, all the thoughts I feel need to be shared. So I probably won't be posting those as often as I'd like to, but who knows, I'll try and post them somewhat often. But today I'm going to be doing something that I haven't done before on this channel, and that is ranking the discographies of some of my favorite artists. Now, fun fact, this was originally going to be the second video on my channel because back in May I made my welcome to my channel introduction video, and then after that I uploaded that video and I filmed what was going to be essentially this video, but I was using a different editing software than I'd ever used before, and I accidentally exported the video the wrong way into a file that YouTube wouldn't take, and so because of that I was never able to upload the video, and now I'm essentially redoing that, and hopefully I remember to export the file correctly this time. But since I've done all of that correctly with all my past videos, surely I'll be able to do it this time. But today's artist that we are going to be ranking is one of my favorites of all time. That is the Velvet Underground. They're a late 60s, early 70s rock band that didn't really stick to one genre. They seemed to change essentially with each album, and they inspired so many artists, and they were covered also by so many artists like David Bowie, The Runaways, Joy Division, and they'd go on to be credited as being influential for the punk genre as well as modern indie music, setting the template for those. And so you can imagine the Velvet Underground have quite the legendary status in the music community, even though Lou Reed is really the main person that got fame after the Velvet Underground. Even he seems to be overshadowed by the legacy of the Velvet Underground, despite the fact that the Velvet Underground were a flop at their time and didn't really start getting success and recognition until like the 80s, I think. But anyways, that's a little bit of background on the Velvet Underground. Let's get into ranking their albums. So they only released 5 albums in their whole time, and so there's only going to be a perfect 5 albums in this list. No weird 7 albums, just 5. But anyways, let's get on to the albums. At the number 5 spot is an album that I do not have on vinyl. It hasn't been officially reissued, and I don't think it was ever released here in the US back whenever it was released in '73. I think it was only released in like UK and Europe, and that album is their final album called Squeeze. Now, anyone who's a Velvet Underground fan will not be surprised I put Squeeze as the number 5 spot on this list, and that's just because Squeeze has just an unfortunate legacy in the Velvet Underground's discography. If you look at like allmusic.com, you'll see that their first 4 albums have 5 out of 5 stars, and then Squeeze has just like a 1 out of 5 stars, which it's not that bad of an album. The thing about Squeeze, that's why nobody really likes it, is just because it doesn't have any of the original members of the Velvet Underground. All it is just the only Velvet Underground member is Doug Yule, and the whole album is just him and Deep Purple drummer Ian Pace, I think is his name. And so it's not really a Velvet Underground studio album, it's more of just a Doug Yule solo project released under the Velvet Underground name, which I think they had to do that maybe as like a contract fulfiller. I don't really know, but it leaves an unfortunate stain on the Velvet Underground's great discography. And that's not to say the album is bad. The album is listenable, but I mean, it's not really an album that makes an impact on you. You just kind of listen to it, and then you're just like, oh, okay, that happened, and you don't really think anything of it after that. But yeah, Squeeze, it's definitely not the album to start with. It's just kind of loaded but if Loaded was boring, it's not very interesting. So yeah, unless you're a really big Velvet Underground fan like I am, don't listen to Squeeze really. But anyways, on to our number 4 spot in the rankings. We've got a record I do have, and that is their final one with Lou Reed, and that is Loaded. Now, this is probably going to be a little bit of a controversial opinion as putting this as my least favorite of the Lou Reed era albums, because this is a lot of people's favorite Lou Reed era Velvet Underground record. And this one, I do really enjoy it. It's got a lot of really good songs like Who Loves the Sun, Sweet Jane, Cool It Down, Train Round the Bend. It's got some fantastic cuts on it, but the thing about this album is just it's not all that interesting to me. Like, the Velvet Underground's first 3 albums were just unlike any other album that there was at that time, and then for a while there still wouldn't be anything like it till like the 70s, mid to late 70s, when with punk came along. But this album was their attempt at just making it big. It's called Loaded because the album was supposed to be loaded with hits, so it's just kind of basic 60s and 70s type numbers that really were supposed to just be played on the radios. We're supposed to get them big and famous, but as we all know, it didn't work. This album was also a flop, and unfortunately, it was the last album with Lou Reed and just didn't get any of the credit it deserves, because I mean, it still is a really good album. It's just not all that interesting in my opinion. But if you're a fan of just the 70s rock or kind of like mid to late 60s rock, then you'll really enjoy this album, because I mean, it's got a lot of really good harmonies on it. Like on Who Loves the Sun, you have the chorus that goes ba 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 ba. It's almost, I heard someone describe it like a turtle song kind of, and I could see that influence. But yeah, number 4 is Loaded. Number 3, from 1968, we've got the final album with John Cale, and that is their second album, White Light, White Heat. Now this album, this is where we start to get to the really good stuff from the Velvet Underground, because I mean, this one is just so good in my opinion. It definitely, I will admit, it was a bit of a grower on me. At first I didn't care too much for it when I heard it, but the more and more I've listened to it, the more I just absolutely love this record. It's just so good. This album is really the album that cemented the Velvet Underground as being a proto-punk band, because you have songs on here like White Light, White Heat, and Sister Ray that are just 3 chord songs, but they're so loud and distorted and dirty and gritty that they're just so good. And along with those 2 songs, you have other songs I really enjoy, like Lady Godiva's Operation with John Cale on lead vocals. And then you've got I Heard Her Call My Name, which is just a really loud rocker that's just so good. It's got a really good solo by Lou Reed at the end. This is just a fantastic album. It's a really good follow-up to their second album. It's a lot of got the weird John Cale era Velvet Underground that a lot of people know that era for, because John Cale was kind of where more of the experimentation from the Velvet Underground came from. So this album is definitely not very commercial. It's got a really strange sound. The production sounds like it was like produced with a potato. But I mean, that's part of why I love this album, because I mean, it wasn't meant to be a big like production sounding like something from Asia. It was supposed to be crappy sounding, and that was the point of it, and that's why it's so good in my opinion. And I love this album a lot. Like I said, it's a bit of a grower. It took me a few listens before I really started to enjoy it. So if you hear this album and you don't really get it on the first time, just give it a few listens. Listen to it while reading the lyrics off of your computer like I did, and you'll start to really love this album and appreciate it. Now at number 2, we've got from 1969, their second self-titled record, just simply titled The Velvet Underground. And this album I absolutely adore. It's just fantastic. I mean, it's not like, it's kind of the perfect combination of their weird experimental era with John Cale, but at the same time the commercial kind of pop rock sound of albums like Loaded and Squeeze. It just kind of does both those things perfectly, because you got songs like The Murder Mystery, which is just a really weird 8.5-minute song that it like features the verses with Lou Reed and Sterling Morrison not even singing, they're just kind of reading things, 2 separate things, so it's kind of hard to keep up with them. And then at the chorus you've got Doug Yule and Maureen Tucker singing like two different melodies, and they do that for like 6 minutes, and then finally towards the end you have this little piano lick playing over and over with Lou Reed and I think it's Doug Yule just reading stuff off again, and it's a really weird on first listen, but it's another thing that once you listen to it over and over like I do, you start to love it a lot. And I just sometimes I'll listen to the Murder Mystery on its own. I don't even have to listen to the album itself. I just love listening to the Murder Mystery. It's a fantastic album. But then you've also got just some more rock and roll songs like What Goes On, Some Kind of Love, Beginning to See the Light, which are fantastic songs. And you've also got some more mellow songs like Candy Says, the classic Pale Blue Eyes, which is one of the Velvet Underground's biggest songs. Jesus, I'm Set Free, That's the Story of My Life, and After Hours. This is just a fantastic album. Like I said, it combines the early kind of experimental nature of the John Cale era with the later Loaded and Squeeze era of Velvet Underground. And to me, it really sounds like it's laying out the template of what would become indie rock like today, like artists like Angel Olsen and all of that. Their sound just sounds a lot like this record, and so you can't help but feel this album really paved the way for modern indie rock. Now at number 1, I think everyone who knows the Velvet Underground knows what this is going to be. It's the album on my shirt. It's the poster on the wall over there, and that is their iconic 1967 debut, The Velvet Underground and Nico, produced by Andy Warhol. And I mean, what is there that can be said about this album that hasn't already said? It's a masterpiece of an album. There was nothing like it then, and there has still been nothing like it now. I mean, it's got some very 60s sounding pop rock songs that like Sunday Morning and I'll Be Your Mirror, but then you've also got just really weird moments on the album, like the Black Angels Death song, Venus and Furs, and All Tomorrow's Parties. And then you've got songs that are very proto-punk that, you know, are essentially much like the White Light, White Heat album, laid the template for what would become punk in the 70s, like songs like I'm Waiting for the Man, Run, 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 Heroin. I mean, it's just a fantastic album all the way through. You can listen to it just over and over, in my opinion, and it will still sound just as good as the first time, and it, at the same time, just gets better with each listen. I mean, I just absolutely love this album to death, and I don't think you'll find anyone really who will say anything negative about it, and if they do say anything negative, then they're probably wrong, because this album is just a masterpiece, and I love it to death. If you're gonna, at least in my opinion, if you're gonna get into the Velvet Underground, start with this record. I know a lot of people would probably recommend starting with Loaded, but with me, this is the album that got me into the Velvet Underground, and thus I think if you're going to get into the Velvet Underground, this is the one you should start with. It's just a classic, the cover's iconic, and if you find a copy like mine, you can get the peelable banana, or maybe you can even find an original pressing with the banana still intact. It's just, everything about it is iconic, from the music to the little peelable banana. I just love it. So yeah, that was my rankings of the Velvet Underground. If you're wanting to get into the Velvet Underground, then these are definitely, I recommend starting with the Velvet Underground Nico, of course, and then go from number 1 to number 5 if you find that you really enjoy the band. Or you can do what I did and just listen to all of them in chronological order, because I mean, whenever I listen to them in chronological order, I got a different experience with each album I listened to, and I just loved it each time. So it was just, you never knew what would be coming next from them, and it was just, that's what made the Velvet Underground fascinating. But anyways, this has been my ranking of the Velvet Underground discography. I might try to do some more artists. I don't know who I do next. I would like to do Prince's discography, but he's got 39 studio albums, so I'd have to make that like a 2-part video, but we'll see. Maybe I'll find some other artists. Ooh, I can do like Tom Petty's discography, because I've heard his entire discography, so I can rank his as well. Maybe we'll see in the future. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.